Attack on Titan is Hajime Isayama's first ever manga. Whilst technically that is true, this first manga was a one-shot of Attack on Titan published all the way back in 2006. It makes the already apparent development that happens across the main series that much more impressive. Attack on Titan's main series started in Basatsu Shonen magazine on September 9th, 2009, and it would go on to become one of the best-selling manga of all time. It had fairly simplistic artwork, almost sketch-like in its abundance of lines and sometimes misaligned anatomy that was clearly due to, initially, inexperience. Questionable releases like the Colossal Edition only further the problems of the early artwork in Attack on Titan. On Manga Brog, there's an interview where Hajime Isayama actually puts himself down for it a little, but highlights the importance of standing out. I think my art is idiosyncratic to me in its ugliness. People got a kick out of it, and somehow it caught on. I've come to feel worse and worse about my art as I've gradually noticed how awkward it looks. Better to have memorable art, even memorably bad art, and stand out. I'll link it down below because it's a fascinating read, but the artwork of Attack on Titan is one of those series that isn't beautiful, but it still looks really great. The series would eventually grow, and Isayama would improve by leaps and bounds to get where we are today. But there's something still quite curious about his work, both new and old, and it's the reason why I'm making this video. As the years have elapsed, there's an aesthetic which Isayama has retained into a purposeful look for the series that isn't shaken off with experience. It's stayed and maybe even gotten a bit stronger as the years have gone by. It's a more purposeful element to the visuals for the series. I'm talking about Hajime Isayama's lines. The conviction of the characters and the brimming emotion underlying the whole story is conveyed through this style, where line art becomes more unfocused and hectic, more psychological and unrefined. Occasionally hectic line art to connote emotion is by no means new or an unpopular technique, but in a series where that scratchiness is always present, it makes the focus and then the delinearity more interesting to take note of when and where it appears. Conversely, you could take it as a reading of its own, that the mental state of none of these characters are stable. The scratchiness of the line art ramps up a sense of liveliness to whatever's going on, but I think an appropriate comparison that adds to this liveliness is the similarity of the artwork to that of courtroom drawings. It's the kind of drawing that's done live, in person, trying to illustrate the flow of events as they happen as quickly and accurately as possible. That makes Attack on Titan look appealing whilst not looking beautiful. You can see this, ironically enough, in the courtroom sequence. To talk about courtroom drawings for a second, it almost adds to the immersion of the story from a quality perspective as well. Like when a fantasy book has a viewpoint character, like a scribe that's going about and documenting the events of the book, this is one long courtroom drawing of events. Interspersing these with background knowledge and in-universe documentation every chapter furthers this idea. Whilst being ugly, it's a unique visual tendency that fits the story and drives home the immersion factor. It shouldn't be ruled out though that the artwork does definitely keep getting better, and the growth of Isayama is an evolution worth noting atop this point. Characters go from looking flat and simple to dynamic and believable. In the beginning of the manga, it sometimes feels a little bit like a collage, where images are overlaid, and where it sometimes feels like this isn't really displaying a 3D environment as much as it could be. And then in the later manga, we get a majority of battles and even dramatic conversations with a real sense of scale and heavy understanding of focal viewpoints. Conversations in the early manga barely ever took the focal point away from the characters. The backgrounds only really serve the context of where they are. But in the later manga, conversations start overlooking scenery, sometimes they're framed in such a way as to connote characters' mentality, and they start getting deliberate thought of transitioning from one scene to the next. The divide between Eren and Reiner, of their invasions on each other's lands, and just generally of the divide between Eldian and Malayan societies, gives Attack on Titan an amazing scope for differing backgrounds. Going from A to Z shows an artistic growth, but also a strengthened eye for design, which I think improved maybe a little bit more than the artwork did. As different groups come into the story, we can instantly look at some of these characters and identify what part of history Isayama is adapting, be it the oppressed or the authoritarian. The detail of intricacy to these sets and even to informative diagrams has this aura of mystery to them that makes the audience question it, and this is something that strengthens the lore building of the series. The problems that these characters are facing is a mysterious and timeless one from their point of view, even from the beginning of the story. And the design is perfect to tell the answers to this tale, because Isayama himself didn't know the ending of the manga when he started out, and so he ended up developing this design as he uncovered more of these answers. It's funny to think back at how limited a small society behind those walls was, because just like the characters in the walls learning about the outside world and changing it in such a drastic way, Isayama discovered this bigger world as an artist, and his work started changing drastically right along with it. Isayama falls into the camp of the storytelling gardener, who plants his seeds and doesn't know exactly how his fruit is going to turn out from the very beginning, but with the care he puts into it as the growth takes place, ensures that it's dug up and fully delivered just at the right time. The artistic evolution of Attack on Titan is one that perfectly illustrates the way in which Isayama tells his story. It worked from the beginning as something resembling a courtroom drawing, and it works as a developing manga because of how it goes on to show this deepening, ever-increasingly complex story with a visuality that itself gets more complex. There isn't a single set of designs in this series or element to the artwork that betrays any of the story, and like the best of designers, his images always tell us more. The first prototype chapter of Attack on Titan that I showed at the beginning of this video was, believe it or not, actually rejected from publication when Isayama first made it. Though it didn't stop him, and it didn't stop this story that he wanted to tell, or even the way that he wanted to draw it. It's kind of motivational in a way. He just ran with it until it worked out, and it miraculously did. Thank God that it did, because Attack on Titan is one of the best series ever made, and the artistic evolution tells a story all of its own. I've now done artistic evolution videos on Berserk, D. Greyman, Vagabond, JoJo, and now Attack on Titan. Let me know what you think needs covering down below. But let me now give a massive thanks to my patrons. I hope all my patrons enjoyed the Christmas video that I posted, and I did it unannounced. It was a Patreon exclusive video, but I just wanted to say that there is now another Patreon exclusive video coming along the way. So thanks again everyone who supports me. Be sure to like the video, and have a great night.